Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to introduce you to matrices. Matrices are a type of math that have different properties than vectors and other functions that we've previously seen. They're really good at displaying a lot of data. So I like to think of these similar to Excel spreadsheets, or really Excel spreadsheets being a very large matrix. So in a matrix, we have what we call an array. In math, we think of an array as sort of just basically a string of values that we can use for data collection purposes to represent something. An array is a very vague topic, but we like to organize them into rows and columns. So each matrix has sort of rows. If I look at them from a left to right perspective, that would be a row. In the matrix down here, there's 2 rows. Or I could think of them as columns going from sort of top to down, top to bottom. So we have sort of 2 columns in the top one, 3 columns in the bottom one. Now this is actually really important because that's how we classify these. So 2 rows by 3 columns. And this is 2 columns here. And the other one is 2 rows by 2 columns. Now why that might be kind of important is that when we talk about doing operations with this later on, these are actually going to tell me if we can do specific operations. And so the way that we write it is 2 with a little x by 2. So that's how we use that little x is by. So this is a 2 by 2 matrix, whereas this one had 2 rows by 3 columns. So it's a 2 by 3 matrix. And so what's kind of nice is if I wanted to say second row, second column, that gives me an exact spot to look. Second row, second column would produce the value R. So it's almost like sort of giving everybody an address, like a street address. First row, first column would be M in this case. First row, third column would be O in this place. So each one of these has a specific, basically, address that we can find it at. And we use this to describe the entire dimension. So let's look at how we can classify them. So here's 2 examples. So this has 1, 2, 3 rows by 2 columns. So you can see here this is a 3 by 2, and the previous one we had a 2 by 3, which looks something like this. So if you notice, it's the same amount of sort of cells, essentially, right? 6 locations, 6 spots, but just in a different placement. So this doesn't have a 3rd column, but it does have a 3rd row, whereas this one has a 3rd column, but not a 3rd row. And this one here is a 3 by 4 matrix. So one quick definition that's pretty helpful later on in this little mini unit here is called a square matrix. Not that this has any real importance on its own, but a square matrix is any matrix which columns and rows are exactly the same. So the most common one that we will see is a 2 by 2, but this extends further to 3 by 3 or 4 by 4. So this, since it has 2 rows and 2 columns, is a 2 by 2 square matrix. Okay, like I said, for right now, this really doesn't have much more meaning other than the rows and the columns are the same, but it actually has a lot of unique properties later on. And same thing here is another 2 by 2 matrix. It's another square. The last thing that we can do is have this sort of problem where we can analyze individual cells. So like I said earlier, they all have like little addresses. This one here is first row, first column. Well, that has to match first row, first column. First row, second column has to match first row, second column. Second row, first column has to match second row, second column. Or second row, first column, sorry. And then second row, second column has to match second row, second column in each of these matrices. So you can see I did it with the color, and so we can actually solve each individual cell to make sure that the matrices are equal. So T would have to be 6, M would have to be 15. Fortunately for us, the green one, the second row, first columns are already solved. They're just equal to each other. And here we would get 5. If they're not equal, like for example, if the green 3s were not the same value, then that means that the matrices are just not equal, unless there's something else happening here. But as it is, each cell has to be equal to the other cell. Okay, so I hope that was helpful in this introduction. In future videos in this little unit that we're going to do, I'll talk about different types of operations that we can do with matrices. So this is just the beginning of understanding what is a matrix, what are the dimensions, and how we can think about them as individual pieces of a set of values. I hope it was helpful. Come back and watch any more if you need it. See you in the next one.